I'm Larry Barsh, and you are listening to Specifically for Seniors, the podcast for those of us in the Remember When generation. Today's podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts and in video and audio on Spotify and on the Specifically for Seniors YouTube channel. Today on Specifically for Seniors, we are excited to welcome Jim Richardson. Jim has produced more than 50 stories for National Geographic and National Geographic Traveler magazines. Jim teaches and speaks internationally and is co-founder of Eyes on Earth, which mentors young environmental photographers. He has been profiled on CBS News Sunday Morning and ABC's Nightline. Jim was voted the National Geographic Photographer's Photographer by the Society's Assignment Photographers. Welcome to Specifically for Seniors, Jim.
Larry, it's good to be here with you. This is an honor.
I'm embarrassed now. How did you get started with National Geographic?
Oh, well, I grew up on a farm taking pictures with my dad's cameras that he bought in pawn shops. That's a first step, I suppose. But I worked for newspapers for 15 years, and during that time did all kinds of photo stories and some books and some things like this. And by the time I left the newspaper world to become a freelancer, I guess I was kind of a known quantity. I knew the folks at National Geographic, and they knew me, and so it was a relatively easy transition. It still took a couple of years till I really hit one out of the ballpark, if I'm allowed to say that, and that really cemented the relationship with National Geographic. But it's been going on 35 years now.
Were you assigned shoots or did you pitch your own stories?
It could be both ways, but my preferred method was to pitch my own stories, to write the proposals. Stories on National Geographic, they always got started with a proposal. You know, you never just kind of you never just bought a ticket to Paris and walked the streets until you found some good pictures. You know, there was a proposal, it was about an idea. And then, you know, it was very bureaucratic in that it went through a committee and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, you write a proposal. I liked to write the proposal because I wanted to be the person setting the agenda. And most of all, Larry, I wanted to make sure that I was photographing a story that was photographable. You want to work on a story in which there are good opportunities to make great pictures. You want to stack the deck in your favor if you can. So you would rather have a story on the Grand Canyon than America's illustrious history of car washes. You really, you want good stuff to photograph.
Or a story on beige houses in southern Florida.
There you go, man. It may be a cultural trend, but the pictures are awful. Yeah.
My favorite quote of yours is, if you want to be a better photographer, stand in front of better stuff.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Stand in front of more interesting stuff. Yeah. We were teaching a series of workshops for travel photography with National Geographic. And I struggled with the idea of what can I say to somebody who's here in the audience today that they can take with them and they can use that will get them to the idea of what should they actually do, when they get out there. And unfortunately, so many photographers believe in knob turning. The photographers believe that they can make better pictures by turning the knobs and being, well, quote, creative, and they are ever so much better at spending more time finding interesting subjects than just believing that the right f-stop or the right shutter speed will make the picture for them. So that's what I meant to do. I meant to be able to tell photographers, put effort into finding really interesting subjects. If you're standing in front of interesting stuff, you have a much better chance of taking a good picture, an interesting picture, than if you're just trying to make better pictures out of the same old roses out in the garden.
You hit on a little point with me. I just am so tired of seeing flower pictures. It's
Yeah.
Also in combination with sunset pictures. That's enough.
Sunsets, windmills, eagles. May we say eagles? I mean, the classic is that you go to a camera club photo contest, and what you see is you see a bunch of mug shots of eagles, and everybody's there with their magnifying glass just trying to see which eagle is sharper.
Oh, thank you.
And they're all beautiful. I mean, they're all sunset pictures are beautiful. I mean, it's hard to find a bad one. It's just that everybody has their own sunsets, and it's hard to say something just with the sunset that really is interesting to somebody someplace else in the world. No.
I want to get back to camera club judging in just a minute. The world of photography has changed during my lifetime, from having to yell, "Nobody flushed the toilet, I'm in the dark room, I don't need the water temperature changing," to "that sky would look better with clouds, where's my cloud file?" What's your feeling of film versus digital?
Well, I spent a plenty of my life working with film. Dark rooms, yes. I mean, I stained so many shirts with Fixer in a dark room, that my wife my wife despaired of ever getting them clean. And I shot plenty of film like Kodachrome, the iconic Kodachrome and Ektachrome and Fujichrome, to know that when I got my first digital camera, a Nikon D100, and I could see what they could do. That was I was out shooting a story on the Great Plains, and when I got that camera and I saw what it could do, I said immediately, "This is my last film story. I'm done with film, and I'm never looking back." And I haven't looked back since. I absolutely love digital, but I love digital because it lets us see more of the world. It lets us photograph effectively in many more situations, whether it's midday. When we shot on Kodachrome, we never went out in midday. That was your time you took a nap, because the pictures at midday looked awful on Kodachrome. Well, today you can take pictures any time of the day or night, and we never did pictures at night because, well, you just really couldn't do it, and so we can see so much more of the world now. But you're right. It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Yes. Everybody's got the artificial intelligence software that can automatically put clouds and lightning in the sky and can take out telephone poles and do all that kind of stuff. Well, at least for National Geographic, I'm a nonfiction photographer. That's the way. It's about as simply as I can put it. I rely on the power of reality in my pictures. And if I'm doing that, I can't go playing games. I can't go adding clouds where none existed. I can look for clouds and I can play them up for everything they're worth when I'm looking through the viewfinder, but I just can't go randomly add them in because, this scene would look better with some clouds. No, I can't do that.
Cameras today are miniature computers, which means to a degree, you don't have to think as much about the technical aspects. Does that free you up to think more about composition, the emotional effect of the photograph?
It should. It should. Yes. The bar is higher. You know, it used to be. If you go back far enough, if you could simply make a sharp black and white print, you could get work. It didn't have to say much. You just were a camera operator. No, the kinds of things that the mobile phone photography can do with the computational photography today is just astounding, and that raises the bar. It means that just getting something sharp or with nice colors is step one. In order to do really good pictures, and pictures that will garner attention. I mean, the problem now is we're inundated in pictures, just flooded with pictures. And so you're out in this marketplace of the visual world, and your pictures have to compete. Certainly if you're on Instagram or any of the social media that rely heavily on images, then the pictures are searching for eyeballs. And I think that means that the mobile phones can do wonderful pictures, but also that you're going to have to do better than just get nice color and sharp. That's the beginning steps. You need more. The pictures need to say things. They need to communicate things. And you, the photographer, needs to have things to say. Yeah.
So your job as a photographer has really changed with the change from film to digital.
It has, yes. And I mean, I think some lingering in the minds of some people is the idea that the photographer is someone who takes other people's ideas, who takes assignments, takes a shoot list, and goes and does the photographer technical things, But increasingly, the photographer has to be not just the technical camera operator. They need to be the embodiment of the message. They need to be the person who has something to say. I mean, you would never, if it was a novel, you would understand that the writer of a novel is more than a typewriter operator. They have things to say, right? Well, that's where photography is now, is that the best photographers have things to say. They understand how to say them. They are saying important things and interesting things, and they know how to get those things out to audiences. All of that is now wrapped up in photography. My friend up in Lincoln, Nebraska, about 3 hours north of me here, Joel Sartori, is a great example of that. You've probably seen his work because he's the guy behind the photo arc at National Geographic. He's the guy documenting all of those endangered species in the world that are in zoo collections, basically. Mm-hmm. And he's done, I think he's up to 10,000 now. I mean, it's just an incredible body of work. But he is also the embodiment of the issue of saving endangered species. And what he's talking about then when he gives his presentations to people, he's not talking about photography. He's talking about endangered species and the importance of the species. And as a photographer, that's all wrapped up into what he does.
Yes. What is your answer to someone who says, that's a great photograph? What camera did you use?
Oh, I like cameras. I don't mind talking camera stuff, as long as everybody understands that that's not the only issue. And as a matter of fact, all of the cameras today are so good that almost any picture today can be taken with any of the sort of the major manufacturers cameras, yeah, they're just all good. So it's interesting. It's interesting chat, but it's insider pool,
Yeah.
and it probably isn't going to, as long as you understand that simply switching cameras isn't going to make you a better photographer. That's one of the most important things. But no, I loved chatting, all that kind of stuff. And there are capabilities that certain cameras have, and certain reasons why you would pick one over another. Yeah, there are.
Mhm.
But fanboy quality squabbles, no, that's not a good reason.
A question.
Mhm.
Do you crop photos, or are you a purist, quote unquote?
I don't very much, but for more basic reasons. And there are a couple of aspects of that, that I think are worth talking about. One, I grew up in an era in which you had to eke out every bit of quality you could from the 35 millimeter frame. So the best thing to do was to not rely on cropping. We did in newspapers, we cropped plenty, and I have no basic philosophical reasons not to crop images, depending on their use and whether or not it make them better. What I see though is a lot of people today who want to own a very high megapixel camera with the idea that when they're out there taking the picture, they don't really have to work very hard. They just stand back and get all those megapixels, and then they'll crop it later. But that doesn't help if you didn't arrange the things in the viewfinder to the best possible advantage when you were there. You can crop in the edges, and you could crop things out, and you can do all those kind of things, but it doesn't help you when you should have put that person closer to the camera and included the dog in the background. No, that just cropping won't help you if you haven't done that kind of level work. So I discourage people in my workshops from relying on cropping when they really should be working their creative muscles
And
at the
physical muscles.
time they take the picture. That's right. There's a great value in zoom lenses, but there's also a great value in footwork.
Sneaker zoom.
Well, sneaker zooms. There you got that's a great phrase.
We talked before about camera clubs.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've been in and out of camera clubs, like most amateur photographers, and listened to judges who go on about how sharp, as you said before, the feathers are on a bird,
Yeah.
and that makes the quality or lack of quality of a photograph. How do you feel about that?
Well, I don't mean to be disparaging, because there are reasons for a lot of these things. For instance, yes, if you are photographing for a bird guidebook, yes, then you want to see all of the birds sharp. Yeah, there is a good reason for doing that. If you're doing a fine art photograph of birds, then you may make totally different decisions. What I am against, sort of, is the arbitrary rules school of good photography. Rule of thirds, the Fibonacci, did I say that right? Fibonacci spiral kind of compositional school, all of those kind of things, because essentially you can follow all the rules and you still have a boring picture. It won't necessarily make a boring picture into an interesting picture. And you can have a very interesting picture, a riveting picture that follows none of the rules. And you might be able to improve it some with some cropping or something like this. But the essence is, if it was really interesting to begin with, it can probably stand up to a whole lot of errors. And I kind of recoil at the idea that you can make better pictures simply by correcting all the mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that works. There are some kind of things, yeah, you want to get right. You like to have it in focus. You want the exposure to be effective. All those kind of things. But it doesn't necessarily mean if you start out with a boring picture and you correct all the mistakes that you're going to end up with an interesting picture. And that, in today's world, is the coin of the realm. Interesting, and so very often, I know that there is sort of the camera club world in which much of it is based on points and wins and all that, and that's all great, all great fun, and there's no reason not to do it if you find it interesting and worthwhile. But it it I don't think that people who are very good at that should be surprised if some picture editor at National Geographic doesn't get it when they show them the picture of the eagle, because that picture editor has seen lots and lots and lots of eagles before. Yeah.
So what gets more important? What is more important? The opinion of a single judge, or the opinion of maybe 100,000 followers on Instagram?
Now you see you've asked a very complicated question, Larry.
And I had trouble asking it too.
And yes, I mean I can broach it in a couple of ways. One is that back in the day, I'm harking back to National Geographic now, and 30 to 40 years ago, if you got that one gatekeeper at National Geographic, that director of photography, to say you were a good photographer, then sort of your life was golden, because you were going to get these assignments and be published and all. So it's sort of the gatekeeper era. It's the equivalent of the one knowledgeable judge that you just put out now. Today, of course, you have so much different. And yes, I get out my iPhone and I post on Instagram, and by the next morning, I can tell whether or not that picture hit it out of the ballpark or was a dud. By the voting, essentially the online voting of all those people. I don't necessarily think one of those systems is better than the other, but they are both that newer democratic voting that happens on platforms like Instagram today is a new thing in the world. You couldn't do that 30 years ago, and so we have a new mechanism in the world. And what I find fascinating is that you have photographers who are able to use that system to gain followers, to gain viewers, to do real things with their photography, to be very effective in the world. I think that's a net gain for us. And so I think both systems still exist if we pare it down to just those two extremes. But I very much value that there are all kinds of photographers out there who can sort of enrich us with their pictures. I myself, before we started here, we were talking about our dogs barking. Well, we have a Jack Russell Terrier, and now I'm an ardent follower of Jack Russell Terrier accounts on Instagram. Yeah, along with steam engines and all kinds of other things. But I'm also on Instagram. We have been involved with a friend, Amy Vitale, another National Geographic photographer, with a project called Vital Impacts. And for the last 6 weeks, we have been selling prints online to raise money for aid of people in Ukraine. And all of a sudden you can do that. You can have real impact by doing something like this. Well over 100 of our National Geographic photographer colleagues have participated, and all the money goes to aid in Ukraine. Vitalimpacts.org, if I may say that.
Sure.
Today's the last day of the sale, though, and so I don't know if people will be able to do that. But it is something. It's a wonderful thing to be able to take the pictures and have real impact. Yes.
Do you think on National Geographic assignments, for example, do you think the photographers get enough recognition?
Oh, I think, yeah, we got fair billing. Yeah, we did.
Do
you? Oh, yes. Maybe not quite as much as we did, but here's what you knew in whenever you're doing a story in National Geographic, as opposed to other magazines, let's say the New Yorker or something like this. When National Geographic, the photography was always going to get 3/4 of the space. Now, a lot of other publications, that's not going to happen. And if push came to shove, the writer was going to have to trim their work, not the other way around. So no, we can't claim not getting enough tension. I don't think, it was a good run, I must say. But there aren't a lot of publications who do that, that are photography centric, that start with the images and go from there. Most publications would be word driven.
What I was thinking of was some of these pictures you see of a mountain climber hanging by one arm from a cliff.
Yeah.
And nobody is crediting the camera crew that climbed up that mountain with 70 pounds of photography equipment
there's
on
that.
their
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. Now, in that case, you see, the National Geographic magazine, that would be Jimmy Chin, and he would have the credit on the photography on the story, and they probably would play up his role. But other times, yes, if you are talking particularly about television productions, right? David Attenborough is there with his baritone voice, waxing poetic and wonderfully, by the way. But it's been those poor guys and women in getting stung by mosquitoes, for hours and hours and hours every day for weeks on end, that really made those images. And those folks, unfortunately, do not get as much prime time as they should.
Let's talk a little bit about travel photography.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get ready for an assignment in a location that you've never been to?
Oh, yeah, do a lot of research. It used to be that I would have been buying guidebooks and just anything that had pictures in it, because I want to know what's there. Today I can do a Google search and immediately have an idea of what can be found in any given location. And also to know what are the cliches. If that's valuable for me to know as well, because if I don't, I can go someplace and think I've discovered something wonderful, and I come back and I see that, oh, everybody else in the world does exactly the same thing when they're there. So I want to guard against that. But a lot of research, and then the other thing is, I think it isn't just sort of coming up with a list of must-see things or must-photograph things, but it's how and what, training your mind and your mind's eye to see things when you are there in front of it. You're reading the novels, the murder mysteries set in a location, anything that gives you a sense of of the place, the rhythms of life, the priorities of people who live there, the culture, the nature of the day. That if you're in a far if you're in some country in the far north latitudes, that you have these incredible lingering dusk times, that go on for hours if you're up there in the Shetland Islands, in the North Atlantic, versus if you're in Costa Rica and, it's kind of like when the sun goes down, they turn off the lights. It's a very different place and things work differently and the light is different and all of those kind of things. So as much as I just try and inundate myself. I know there are photographers who say, I don't want to do any of that. I want to go there and be totally immersed in the experience. And I think if you are the kind of photographer who simply wants to go and enjoy the experience of photography, then that's one thing. On the other extreme, if you are on assignment, and you have necessary things to say, then you probably better do a little bit more research. I particularly myself, I enjoy doing the research. I enjoy reading the books, and that's half the joy for me. The things that happen before I ever get on the plane or on the cruise ship.
Would you recommend that to amateur photographers who are taking a trip as well?
Oh, sure. Because one of the reasons I think is you're spending a lot of money on that trip. This is just a way of spreading out the investment, of getting more out of it than just sort of parachuting in and acting like you know everything about the place when in fact you don't.
We talked about this a little bit by email. What do you do when you're in a group trip, a tour? And for example, our last trip was to Cambodia, my wife and I, and we're walking through Angkor Thom, Angkor Wat, all these absolutely marvelous places that you want 3 or 4 days to explore, all times of day. And the other people are saying, when's lunch?
True.
Or where's shopping? Do they have a gift shop?
Yeah, right.
How do you get a series of decent photographs?
Well, there are multiple aspects of your question. One is I think you need to understand what if you're saying a group. So I take it you're on a tour of some sort. Is what you're meaning. Okay.
What I'm trying to balance is the advantages of having someone else carry your bags in and out of hotels with getting some good photographs.
Right. So I think what you have to realize is you have to come to firm grips and be comfortable with accepting what kind of a tour am I on? Am I on a photography tour where the priority is going to be that we will be out there at sunrise and sunset when the light is great, and we'll eat when we can? Or are you going to be a more normal group tour in which people like to be back for dinner and they like to have their breakfast, even if it's at sunrise? What kind of a tour are you on? For instance, I have been on tours that were billed as a photographic tour, but in fact were actually a hiking trip. And all of the decisions had already been made about when the tour operators could make things happen. It wasn't not much priority was set on the photographic side of it. So it was very difficult to make one kind of trip into another. So I think you have to be comfortable that if you're on a group tour and it's the kind of trip in which you're trying to pack in the maximum stuff every day and you're trying to see as many cathedrals as you can and still get everybody fed and all that kind of stuff, probably the opportunities for pure photography are going to be very limited. And you'll still be able to get pictures, but no, it's not the same as if you were like me going out on an assignment for National Geographic, and photography was absolutely ultimately foremost. You're not going to worry about eating. You're not going to worry about sleeping. Well, no, you're not going to do that on most group tours. So I think you have to be comfortable with what you're doing. The second thing is, you notice when you were at Angkor Wat, it was crowded, right?
Yeah.
Well, you can make yourself apoplectic by worrying about people getting in your way at places like this. But it's the nature of the place. And you go to Machu Picchu. It's a park, and they open up at 8 in the morning and they close down at 5, and it's pretty crowded all the time. And no, you can't get people to just get out of your way because you have a camera in your hand. No, that's not going to work. What you can do, if you decide, is you can decide that maybe you don't want to be with the group all the time. Then maybe you're going to go the opposite direction on the tour through the cathedral. You're going to let the tour group that go that way, and you go the other way, and you find some places where they aren't so crowded. You can do that. And I think you need. Go ahead, Larry.
I was going to say that was my wife's favorite line to the guides. Don't worry about Larry. He'll catch up. He'll find us.
Right.
So, and I did find some empty spaces at Angkor Wat.
Yeah, exactly.
Took some climbing. It took some effort. But at the top, there are some empty places.
Yeah. And if you're patient, if you find a picture that you want to do, well, just give yourself 10 or 15 minutes if you can to sit and wait until people clear out a little bit, or somebody interesting comes by, or, well, the elephant walks through, whatever, all that kind of thing. The other thing I think is that you have to decide what kind of photography do you enjoy? Do you enjoy the act of photography? Are you simply wanting to come back with travel pictures that will remind you of your experience? Or are you trying to do pictures that you'll be able to share with others? What is it you want to do and want to get? That will help you decide on what kind of a tour are you going to take in the first place. And then I think once you've done that decision, get yourself comfortable with the nature of what it's going to be. These days, people, by the way, anticipating this kind of thing, people will come to me, then they'll say, I'm going on a trip and I want to take a good camera. What would you recommend? And for those folks, because if they're saying that, they probably don't have a camera bag full of digital SLRs already, and for those folks anymore, I say, have you upgraded your phone lately? Mm-hmm. Do you have the latest and greatest Android or iPhone that does all these things wonderfully? Because that is such a more pleasant way of doing photography in the tour setting, where you're getting, you're getting on and off buses and you're with a group and you really don't want to be carrying a tripod. You don't want to, because otherwise you're going to be fighting all the time the natural flow of things going on. In those cases, those phone cameras are a true blessing. And I've done that. I've taken cruises and I just took my iPhone. That's it.
I was going to ask you what people should put in their camera bag on a trip. So you sort of pre-answered that.
Well, yes, I think it really depends on the trip, but I also think it's worthwhile exploring the capabilities of those cameras. Say you wanted to go one step up from a phone camera, what cameras are there out there that make your life easier? Wouldn't be so big, would give you more capabilities. I don't know. Can I say brand names here?
Sure.
Okay. So I keep a big kit of Nikon cameras for, like serious photography, if you can say that. I also have an Olympus kit because there are a couple of reasons for that. And one of them is that they're smaller, they're lighter. One camera bag, and I can not a big camera bag either, and I can carry several lenses, and I can do very serious photography if I want to. The other thing is they have really great. I'm going to sound like an ad now, but this is what I think about. Okay,
go ahead.
They have really great image stabilization, meaning I don't have to have a tripod with me. That's a big thing if you're traveling, is not having to carry that tripod into the cathedrals and whatever you want to photograph and that kind of thing. And they're waterproof. More cameras are getting all of those capabilities as we speak, but a waterproof camera. I'm going off to Scotland, and you notice it rains in Scotland some, and I can't tell you how many times I've taken these little, the raincoats for cameras, and they're a mess. They're tedious and all this. Well, take a camera that is essentially waterproof. They exist, and they make your life so much easier if you're doing those kind of things.
We were in the middle of a bridge somewhere north of Edinburgh,
mm-hmm.
and it was a beautiful day up until we got to the middle of the bridge when it started pouring. And two gentlemen going the other way said, "Welcome to Scotland."
Well, of course, yeah. Scotland is a great opportunity to show off your really good rainwear. Yeah, not those plastic raincoats, but I mean serious rainwear, and you look spiffy.
What did we miss?
Oh, well,
so much.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do this again. I'd like to talk to you more about iPhone photography.
Oh, sure. I'd love to. I just think I think it opens up so many things for so many people. The way they want to do things. The one thing, Larry, is that I think that if I had to judge, if I had to have one criteria, okay, for judging cameras, pictures, all of that, photography in general, I would come down to say, does this make my life richer? Do these pictures make my life richer, or did taking them take away from the experience of while I'm doing, if we're talking travel photography? Does the experience of doing the photography, do I enjoy that, or is it simply a friction with my spouse? I think it's really worth asking some of those kind of questions, and interrogate the pictures themselves in the same way. Is this picture doing something, or is it just proving that I know how to get things sharp? That's I think that's worthwhile.
I know I did things when I had a camera in my hand that I would not have done in any other situation. I found myself in places that I shouldn't have been, taking pictures of things I probably shouldn't have taken pictures of.
But it also opens doors.
Oh yeah.
And it's a way of sharing. I mean, I think back of certain people who I took portraits of, and I realized later that they were able to, through me and through my picture, they were able to say things to a much larger audience than they would have ever been able to say otherwise. And so I was sort of the conduit. um, but those situations, they don't come up all the time, but when they do, it really shines a spotlight on the value of photographs and what they can do for us.
And it's a way to communicate with people when you don't share a language.
Exactly. So,
Having a camera in your hand and a smile and a nod, you
yeah,
get to meet a lot of wonderful people.
and it's so much better if you, I always tell my students, I said, don't stand across the street with your zoom lens. You look like a spy, and people don't like spies. Go across the street and meet those folks, and see if something doesn't come out of that encounter that is personally and photographically better.
Absolutely. One final thing. Tell me
Hmm?
about Small World Gallery.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, we live in a small town out here in the Midwest, in the very middle of Kansas, where my wife and I both grew up. We have a gallery on Main Street of a town of about 3,700 people, I think, Lindsborg, Kansas. It's a Swedish American community, all those Swedish immigrants coming out there. And so our phone book is full of Andersons and Swensons and things like this. And so we have a small gallery, and we have my photography and my wife jewelry, and our assistant Brianna's jewelry, and books and children's books and stuff we find interesting. And we hope other people find interesting too as well. And it gives us a platform on Main Street that acts as a hub and our connection in many other different ways as well.
Website?
Website, jimrichardsonphotography.com, if you want to get at my serious stuff, and smallworldgallery.net. Smallworldgallery.net if you want to come take a look at Small World.
And Saturday mornings from Small World Gallery?
Oh, yes, I do an Instagram live many Saturday mornings. I won't say all, at about 10:30, and I just basically get on Instagram live and open it up to whoever's out there, and talk about photography and all. It's a remarkable experience, because what I ask people to do is to tell me where they're coming from, and the amazing thing is while I have a lot of followers um, on Instagram, um, about 70% of them are someplace other than the United States. So they're from all over. So you start in, and all of a sudden here are people saying that they're coming from Ireland and Iran and India and Bali and Bangladesh, and all of a sudden I'm sitting there talking with people from all over the world, probably 40 or 50 countries every Saturday morning, and it's just a delight.
And you give courses online?
I do with particularly with my friends at Summit Workshops, um, and in fact, I do an iPhone photography workshop. Yes, and you can, if you don't mind my saying, you can go to summitworkshops.com and look for online workshops, and you'll find me when we have an iPhone. Well, I'll be doing that this week, Wednesday and Thursday evening, and basically, I'm just trying to help people figure out everything that expensive phone that they're paying for every month is capable of doing.
Terrific. Jim,
It's fun to do.
thanks for being on specifically for seniors so much. And I really would love to have you back to talk about iPhone photography.
Oh, sure. I'll be glad to. Thank you, Larry.
Take care, Jim. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Larry. Bye.
Bye-bye. If you found this podcast interesting, fun, or helpful, we'd appreciate it if you tell your friends and family, and click on the follow or subscribe button wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, I'm Larry Barsh, and you've been listening to Specifically for Seniors.